Give praise to God. Only 1 out of 10? Do you think if Jesus knew that beforehand, he would have healed the other 9? Do you think after this experience of only one person giving praise and thanks to God, he would have healed again? The question of gratitude, who we help, and the reasons why we help people came vividly to the life of Frederick Ozanam, who's the founder of the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And after 2 years of visiting numerous poor persons in Paris, he wrote these words: "The poor remain cold with an indifference that is very disheartening. A year later, they still receive us with the same reserve that they showed when we first met. They listen to everything we have to say, but they do not react or do anything." And at first blush, you think, well, that must have really discouraged St. Vincent de Paul and all his members. Deacon Paul MacDonald, who's a deacon in the Archdiocese with us, pointed out to me in a homily the response that Frederick Ozanam gave to his own worry and his concern. Ozanam wrote, "Over time, the poor may forget us for our kindness to them, for the food and comfort that we bring to them. But do not expect either of these things or their appreciation right away or every time, and maybe never, but do it all anyway." And Ozanam got to the heart not just of why we do things, but kind of expectations we have. I'm sure many of you know in 1833, with 6 other men, he founded a society called the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, which today has 800,000 members in over 140 countries. He was 185 years ahead of his time because he worked in collaboration and equality with Sister Rosalie Rondeau. She was his teacher, his mentor. She was extraordinarily well known in a very anti-clerical, anti-religious society in Paris as the person who most dramatically ministered to and cared for poor persons. And so Ozanam and his fellow workers, his men, consulted constantly and continually with her to learn how to respond in a proper, good, and healthy fashion with poor persons. And today, that society exists all over the world. It's particularly powerful in our own country. The first Society of St. Vincent de Paul was started in 1847 in Quebec City, very early after Frederick Ozanam did. And the society continues to do 2 things that are at the heart of its work. The first is visiting poor persons in their homes. That's so essential to being a Vincentian. And the second is to respond to social needs by supportive works, by housing and accommodation and drop-in centers, to make sure that in addition to visiting people, for those who have no homes, they have a place. And also, yes, to work with those elements in the society that need to be challenged, that set up the conditions that make poverty continued. Laity, laity, laity. St. Vincent de Paul was a layman. You know that you've heard in the last 6 months about the troubles and difficulties and the scandals in the church. And one reality has come through very powerfully from the Pope on. It is essential that the laity take the leadership, the responsibility for so much is happening in the church. I don't mean we ignore religious and we ignore priests, but without the powerful, articulate, and strong sense of lay leadership, we aren't going to survive. We aren't going to be able to do the things that Jesus wants us to do. No false humility is in order here. Lay people don't need to stand up and say, "Oh, I'm not worthy, I can't do it." That's nonsense. The 2 most humble people in the scriptures after Jesus of Nazareth are the Blessed Virgin Mary, who was humble but powerful in her prayer, in the example she set. And the second humble person was John the Baptist, who set the world on fire, but said he wasn't worthy to tie the straps of Jesus' sandals. So false humility. Everybody, all you who are laity, you have gifts and talents. And if you think you have something to offer, you should know that you do. And that the Society Vincent de Paul is one of the privileged places where you can do something concrete and practical to assist and help our brothers and sisters in need. It isn't mentioned in the documentation. My personal contribution is, I keep saying, we're praying not just with and for the poor. I keep wanting and insisting that we say poor persons. The reason I do that is because poor is an adjective describing perhaps a disability or a condition, but it's the person, the human being that we most count upon. There are people who are poor, whose disabilities and poverties are obvious, but you and I have disabilities. It's obvious I need glasses, I have a hearing aid, but there are other disabilities that I have and that you have that we're able to hide. Poor people can't hide behind stuff, and that's why you and I need to keep central the reality. It's not just a poor, it's a poor person, a human being who deserves all the respect and dignity and love and attention that we want to give to other people and receive ourselves. I know there are poor people who don't say thank you, but we Vincentians know the majority of people whom we're privileged to serve with, always and every way. Sometimes it takes them time, will come by and say thank you for the good that is done with and for them. The motto of the Society is very simple: turning concern into action. All of us, we make complaints. Why doesn't the government do this? Why doesn't the church do more? There's so much poverty. There's so much injustice. All of which is a legitimate complaint. If you have that complaint, and it's deep in your heart, and you really think that the Lord, and I suspect He is calling you into action, then one of the best and most privileged places you can put into action is to volunteer and to join the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. You can be a strong Catholic, a not so strong Catholic, a weak Catholic, a person who's not a Catholic. We welcome all people who, with their faith, wish to express in action their love and concern for poor persons. So any person of goodwill, desirous of helping and working with poor persons, is invited. The gift of poor persons is something we need to hear about. We not only serve poor persons, they have something that we need to hear from, that I need to hear from. And it's only then that we shape a society that's reciprocal, that has equality, that has communion of spirit. Please come and join the Society of St. Vincent de Paul.